Welcome to Light Over Heat with Professor David Yamani. This week I want to talk about a new podcast series called The Gun Machine by Trace reporter Alain Stephens. I was going to skip my video for this week because I'm really feeling pressure from this deadline to finish my Gun Curious book. But in my email this morning, I got my daily update from the Trace, and it said that a new podcast by one of its reporters was available from WBUR in Boston. And so on my way into work, I was listening to the podcast, and I had to say something about it. So first, let me play a little bit about the introduction to the podcast.
Hear that? That's the sound of a 30-round magazine being slammed into the well of an AR-15. I've heard that sound thousands of times. When I think of that sound, my mind goes to a lot of places. To the military, to home. But most of all, it goes to a sprawling suburban wonderland just outside the Flatiron Rock formations of the Rocky Mountains, to a place called Glendale, Colorado. You see, in 2013, Colorado was about to learn the hard way. In the wake of a mass shooting at an Aurora movie theater, the state decided it was time to ban magazines carrying over 15 rounds. So on the eve of the prohibition, a helicopter chartered by a Colorado-based gun company called Magpul Industries landed in a field where thousands of spectators stood in wait. The helicopter was full of 30-round, high-capacity rifle mags, the bread and butter product that made the company rich. The event was the dramatic culmination of what Magpul, whose ranks included former military and law enforcement operators, called the Boulder Airlift. A play on the U.S.-led Cold War mission to counteract Soviet blockades in the 40s. The business described the effort as bringing, quote, much-needed supplies to freedom-loving residents trapped inside occupied territory. But really, it was just a plan to drown the state in as many soon-to-be illegal magazines as possible. And that's exactly what it did. A video of the event shows a helicopter descending as a man off camera yells, "This is freedom." Once the chopper touches down, staffers began handing out magazines to the excited mob for free. They're even joined by gun rights media firebrand Dana Lash.
I followed the law, and I'll admit it, I own an AR-15.
But here's the thing. This wasn't just a clever marketing stunt that pitted Magpul's love of the Second Amendment against government overreach. It was a message. And if you squint hard and think about it, you've seen it before.
From my cold, dead hands.
The NRA's Charlton Heston said it best, right? Give me liberty or give me death. Come and take it, Molin Lave. For decades, we've been told that the gun industry and the government are bitter rivals, mortal enemies, sworn adversaries. According to this story, Magpul is just the latest casualty in the war on the Second Amendment. But this story, it's a lie, and I can prove it.
Okay, so a couple of observations. First, if y'all ever hear me talking in that kind of dramatic tone on this YouTube channel, please let me know, because wow, that didn't sound like a reportorial tone. It didn't seem like it was bringing light over heat. It seemed like it was using some heat to perhaps bring some light eventually to this topic. The other thing, and I listened through to the end of the first episode, and this is just one episode in a series, but when he talks about this idea that we've been told that the gun industry and the government are at odds and that it's a lie and he can prove it, where is he getting this idea that the government and businesses don't collaborate with one another? I was just in Washington, D.C. and suburban Virginia this past weekend, and you cannot drive through suburban Northern Virginia and into the District of Columbia without seeing the fact that business and government collaborate all the time, and arguably the government's job is to protect capitalism and capitalists. And so the fact that the gun industry had close relationships with the government in its beginnings, who doubts that? I mean, I've seen and read many books that highlight that. Now, perhaps there are people out there who are new to guns, and so they are learning about these things for the first time. But honestly, do you need to use such dramatic tones in order to get people's attention? And the other thing is, just because the gun industry was born and developed in collaboration with the government in early America and still collaborates with the government, as do many successful businesses in the United States, doesn't mean that there can't be antagonism between those industries or specific businesses in those industries and the government. So this whole rhetoric of "it's a lie" doesn't really set up this podcast series for me as being something that is going to do anything other than perpetuate the master narrative. And he's already teased the fact that the second episode is going to talk about how a culture of fear, a racially driven culture of fear, is what stimulates gun buying, which is, again, something that those of us who work in the field hear all the time. But does he account for the culture of fear that is created and perpetuated by language and dramatic tones like he's presenting in this podcast series? If the culture of fear is perpetuated very much also by gun violence prevention advocates. So, the culture of fear cuts both ways, and I hope that he recognizes that. I doubt he will, but I will listen to the entire podcast episode series, and maybe I'll have further thoughts on it as I go along. In any event, sorry for the quality of this video and audio. I don't have my recording equipment with me because I was going to take the week off, but I had to say something about this podcast series. What do you think about it? If you've had a chance to listen to it, let me know in the comments. And as always, please share this to the extent that you found some value in it so I can expand my networks of attention.